Welcome to the Plato Paradigm, a paradigm shift in reading Plato's dialogues. Episode 121, Meno 89a to c. Socrates has been asking the questions, but Meno is the one giving the answers, and the argument has been quite perverse, and yet they have reached a conclusion which quite a few philosophers would agree with, that virtue itself is phronēsis, or phronēsis is part of virtue. There are two views of phronēsis in Greek philosophy. All of this has developed out of the hypothesis that if virtue is teachable, it must be episteme of some sort, understanding or knowledge. By the way, those philosophers who consider phronēsis to be part of virtue, in other words, one of its aspects, along with courage and justice and sound-mindedness, these philosophers consider virtue as a whole to be episteme, understanding or knowledge. When virtue is considered to be phronēsis, prudence, it replaces episteme, but instead of phronēsis as one of the aspects, we find sophia, not episteme. It would follow from this argument that virtue is both episteme and phronēsis. This point would be lost on Meno and probably on most of Plato's readers, but he may have thought that this would entertain a few of his readers, or even make them think a bit. Well, we won't do that here, but we'll just carry on with the argument. Uk un e tauta hutos eche, ukan eien phuse hoi agathoi, umoi doke. If this is the situation, the good wouldn't be by nature. It doesn't seem to me. Socrates is eliminating one of Meno's original four options, since Meno had asked what sort of thing aretē, virtue, is, whether it is teachable or exercisable, or comes to people by nature, or in some other way. When they returned to these options just before the hypothesis, Socrates had already managed to forget about exercisable. So the options are teachable, by nature, some other way. And now here's Socrates concluding that the good are not by nature. And it's interesting that he has moved from talking about virtue to the people who have virtue. The good are the ones characterized by virtue. We've already seen this in the dialogue earlier, and it shows that Socrates was lying when he said he knew absolutely nothing about virtue. He and Meno both know that virtue is associated with good. Good people, good things, good horses, they all have virtue. Why wouldn't the good be good by virtue? What if phronēsis is natural? If people were born with phronēsis, they would be good by nature. I suspect that Meno is relying on the fact that the conclusion has come from the hypothesis that virtue is teachable. For Meno, if something is teachable, it cannot be by nature. These are mutually exclusive options. Socrates doesn't criticize Meno's methodology, but he actually provides supporting evidence to show that the good are not good by nature. Kaigar anpu kai toden, e phuse hoi agathoi egignonto, e sanpu an hemin hoi egignoskon ton neon tus agathus tas physes, hus hemes an parlabontes e kenon apophenanton e fulatomenan en acropole, Kata se menamenoi polygmalon eitoch rysion, hina medes autus diephtheren, alepedea ficointo esten helician, chresimoi gignointo tais polasi. E gosceto eo Socrates. For I suppose there'd be this. If the good came to be by nature, I suppose we'd have people who would get to know the good people of the young according to their natures, and when those people proclaimed, we would take away those good young people and would guard them in the acropolis, having distinctly marked them much more than gold, so that no one would corrupt them. But when they arrived at the right age, they would become useful to the cities. That's quite plausible, Socrates. Socrates has just described a ridiculous situation, and yet Meno says it's plausible. Is Meno stupid? No. What we should understand is that Socrates has described a situation which conforms with Meno's views. We might have understood people becoming good by nature to be older people who have developed naturally into good people, but Socrates construes becoming good people to be babies born good. We shouldn't really be surprised because this is how aristocrats come to be aristocrats. They're just born into an aristocratic family, and the aristocrats are naturally good. It's surprising that Meno doesn't object, and I expect Socrates did want him to object. There are people who are naturally good. They are called aristocrats. This seems to have slipped Meno's mind while he listens to the perverse description Socrates gives him. Socrates is actually exploiting Meno's concrete view of abstracts. It would be hard for Meno to conceive of good and bad existing in the same body, or good in some circumstances but bad in others. He also seems to think that if someone is naturally good, he couldn't have been naturally bad beforehand. Why would someone naturally bad become naturally good? Therefore, if someone is naturally good, he's born naturally good and remains naturally good throughout his life. According to Meno's own view, anyone good must be beneficial. But beneficial babies can't do very much, and it would make sense to wait for the babies to grow up, and then they would be very valuable members of the community. This part of Socrates' presumption is therefore plausible, that if there were beneficial babies, it would make sense to store them away, keep them safe, so that they would grow up to be beneficial members of society as men. And I'll give Meno the benefit of the doubt as women. Why would only some people have the ability to identify good babies? Why can't everybody identify good babies? At the very least, this is because Meno has the view that there are bad people. These are the people who are not aristocrats, and these being bad would surely not be able to identify good babies. These people would identify the good babies, and then we, according to Socrates, would preserve them in the acropolis. In other words, we would take the word of some self-appointed people who claim that they can identify which babies are good. This conforms with Meno's view that there are some people who are wise. Why would the good babies be kept in the acropolis? It's not simply that they are being treated like gold and they have to be guarded against theft, but also Socrates mentions preserving them from someone who might corrupt them. This verb also means to destroy, so Socrates may be understood by Meno to mean to save the children from anyone who wishes to destroy them. One of the accusations against Socrates was that he corrupted the youth. I don't think anyone accused him of destroying the youth. Would naturally good people need to be secured away from people who might corrupt them? Surely if they are naturally good, they wouldn't be corrupted. Corruption would have to do with their soul rather than their body. And there is broad understanding in Greek philosophy that anyone with a good soul is incorruptible. So Meno is saying that it's plausible that if there were good babies, they would be kept in the acropolis. But the fact is that no children are kept in the acropolis, therefore there are no good babies. Therefore, we have proved that people do not become good by nature. We are not meant to take this seriously. I hope you don't take it seriously. But this is for Meno's benefit. We are left with one option, that virtue is teachable. Ar un epede u fuse hoi agathoi gignontai, ara mathese, dokemoi ede anankaion enai. So, since the good don't become good by nature, do they become good by learning? This seems to me now to be necessary. It wasn't long ago that Meno was prepared to give up, mainly because he didn't have any more answers to give Socrates about what virtue is. Everything since Meno's sophistic question, how can we possibly find what we are looking for if we don't know what we are looking for? And even if we did find it, how would we know that we have found it? Ever since then, Socrates has been steering the conversation to this point where Meno agrees that actually good people only become good through learning. We'll have to wait till next time to see if Meno understands that this means that virtue is teachable, which was one of the options he offered Socrates.